Welcome back, everyone. Oh, I fucked that up. All right, let's start that over.
All right.
Clear the air lanes for the big broadcast.
We're not professional podcasters.
Say what?
We barely know what we're doing,
It's funny because it's true.
but we have fun anyway.
I'm here to podcast.
Does everybody know what time it is?
We're going streaking! Yeah!
No, we're not. It's time for movies, pop culture, and more with the all-new Culture Cast, starting now. And this is the all-new Culture Cast. Welcome to our newest episode. Tonight we are talking about the latest rage in the podcast world, S-Town, created by the same people behind the podcast series Serial and This American Life.
It's a podcast about a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we're a podcast about a podcast tonight.
Which is so great.
Second time we've done it in within like a month's time or so. But we are the S-Town just was dropped about like a week ago as of this recording.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
something like that. Yeah.
So this is like fresh, brand new, in your face, and it is getting. It is. I think they said it was like one of, if not the biggest podcasts.
Yeah, I
we
think it
downloaded.
surpassed Serial.
Yeah.
They said it got 10 million downloads in the first 4 days, which is similar to our numbers.
Yeah.
They might have a slight edge because they're connected to This American Life, but not too far.
Mm-mm.
In all seriousness, though, I'm actually impressed with our numbers. We get like 200 downloads a month, which for three nobodies, that's not too shabby.
Yeah, and especially because I don't know about you guys, but I'm not listening to the podcast, and I know Lisa isn't. So, like, these are all, like, legit people who are, like, listening to this.
I know the Kiwi listens.
Yeah, but still, that means we have like
that's-
49 solid listeners.
So, yeah, hey, that's something.
Yeah.
But anyway, before we talk more about S-Town, let's get into our regular subjects, regular what do they call
Segment.
it?
Regular segments.
Yeah, a regular segment. What have you been watching?
What have you been watching?
Jen, you want to start us off?
I will definitely start us off because I was watching something right before we started recording the podcast.
That's great. What were you watching? I'm sorry, I'm just being an a-hole.
I gotcha. So anyway, I was watching this new show on Hulu called Harlots, which is about prostitutes in like 1780s London. And it is, I have to say, everything I dreamed it would be.
Because you used to live that lifestyle, and so you identify closely with it.
I mean, in the 1700s, yeah. No, I mean, it's because it's like the sort of ridiculous kind of soapy show that I kind of hoped it would be. Lots of nudity, but not, it doesn't feel quite as like exploitative as like Game of Thrones, which I enjoy, but also like there's a lot of times when you're like, okay, no one had to be a prostitute in that scene. Like there was no reason that woman was naked other than that you wanted that woman to be naked. So it was kind of, but anyway, but it was an interesting show. I'm like one episode in. They're releasing them every Wednesday from now until I guess they get bored. And anyway.
Oh, so they're actually releasing them in like a regular pattern.
Oh yeah,
instead
this
of
is,
everything at once.
This is Hulu, not Netflix. They want you to come back every week.
Yeah, I'm gonna just join in like a month or so for the Handmaid's Tale.
Oh, I know. I'm excited about that one too. But until then, prostitutes.
And it's pretty much the same thing if you think about it.
Absolutely.
Nick, are you familiar with Handmaid's Tale? Have you
Only
read it or
what
anything?
you guys have been talking about, and then my casual Google search.
Sure.
So I don't know
gotcha.
the full birth of it, just a snippet.
Yeah.
I probably will not be watching that. Not out of any...
Out of
spite, yeah. I will not be watching that. Nah. Mostly because, was it on Amazon or Hulu or something like that? And it's just too much effort.
That's a whole other service you have to subscribe to.
I don't have the energy for that.
You don't even have a smartphone, so.
No, and that makes me smart.
Jen, what else?
Other than that, I've been, kind of behind on my TV shows. So, but that, like I said, definitely recommend, for what it is. I guess I've been keeping up on Riverdale, which I mentioned as a show I probably wouldn't watch, and I'm definitely watching.
Nick, are you watching that?
I don't have time, but maybe when the season ends and it inevitably comes to Netflix, like all of the CW shows, like kind of binge the season because it does look kind of goofy fun. So
Yeah,
is it?
no,
What are your thoughts on it, Jen?
Again, another show that is everything I could have hoped it would be. Like, it's like, what if Archie had sex? I don't know. What if?
Does he get some?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
like,
go Archie.
I don't know if you guys ever read the comics. I was not like a comic reader, but I definitely like read a few in my childhood. And Miss Grundy was like the very old woman in the comics who's one of their teachers. Only in this version, she's young and hot and banging Archie. I mean, it's statutory rape, but but he takes off his shirt, so who cares? No, I'm just kidding. But it is, So anyway, it's very sexed up. The girl who plays Veronica is just phenomenal, and I love her so much. And then there's also the central mystery, which is who killed one of the characters, who may or may not have been having incest with his twin sister. Twincest, yeah. Well, I didn't want to use like the lingo in case that would confuse the listeners, but anyway, it's exactly as bananas as I hoped it would be. So, I guess right now I would say that most of the TV I'm watching I don't believe in, but I enjoy. Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay.
All right. What about you guys? What are you watching?
Yeah, I don't think I mentioned this, but I've been watching Black Mirror for the past few weeks. Yeah, a few weeks.
I've heard that's pretty good.
It is like really intense. Like I just put it on because some guy mentioned it once, and I put it in the back of my mind for a while, and I was like, hey, give it a shot. And that first app was like so intense and so crazy. I was like, this is weird. And it's kind of been like a ball rolling. Then I would like watch another one, and then I was like, oh man, that's so crazy. And then it all kind of just came together. I took a day of PTO last week, and I pretty much watched the rest of all 3 seasons because they're that intense. And they're so good. Some of them aren't too hot, but yeah, so I finished that, and it's really good. It's not for the faint of heart. Like, the Graveyard Queen did not really enjoy them because they were so intense, but that was good.
What is like the central premise of the show? Just kind of like...
Each of the episodes is its own thing. They're not connected in any way. Other than the
it's a little more like a Twilight Zone?
Yeah. It deals with technology and our addiction to it. Mm-hmm. So each of them is like technology is like destroying our lives pretty much. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, I would check that out if you are even remotely interested in it. I've also I realized I wasn't going to read Handmaid's Tale before it came out in a month. And so I just succumbed to it, and I got the audiobook for it, and I've been cruising through that at work instead of my regular podcast. And it's as I expected. It's kind of depressing. Actually, it's really depressing. It's pretty awful. Mm-hmm. Like, not in its literary quality. It's just awful, the things that is happening in the book. Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to that coming out. Really only because I feel like I watch just a lot of junk, and this is something that's actually like has quality to it. Yeah, and then Ultimate Beastmaster on Netflix. I checked that out. Have you heard of that?
What the hell?
Is that like based on the '80s movie Beastmaster?
It is,
starring Mark Singer.
It's pretty much American Gladiators 2017. So it's got Terry Crews in it as like one of the announcers, and Sylvester.
Sold.
Yeah.
All in.
And each like nation like brings in 2 competitors to go through this obstacle course, and it's very entertaining because I probably would have watched American Gladiators back in the day, but it's just mindless fun, and the commentators are funny, and the guys are so intense, and go USA. So that's pretty good. And I watched Terminator 2 last night, so that's about it.
Didn't you just watch it like last week or something?
Yeah. It's that good. It was in the DVD player, and I was like, oh my gosh, I could really go for some T2.
I now know why you cry.
Oh my god, dude, so intense. So.
Jen, have you ever seen Terminator 2?
Absolutely not.
And
in your heart, you knew that.
Well, I don't know, because I could see you seeing it because it's the cultural phenomenon that it is, and you just happen to come across it.
Yeah, I don't see it as a bad action movie at all.
No, it's a great action movie.
It has so much emotion in it, and I'm saying intensity a lot. I gotta back off of that.
You're pretty intense with the intense.
Yeah, it's an awesome movie. All the characters are so great, and it's got Edward Furlong and Schwarzenegger. I feel like in his apex prime, he has never been in a better movie than he is in this.
Hey, he was in Batman and Robin.
My point exactly.
That movie is fantastic. So, what I've been watching, not much. At least nothing immediately jumps to mind. I've been busy with a bunch of different little things, trying to get stuff done, trying to work on some costumes for C2E2, which is coming up. So I just haven't been watching a whole heck of a lot. So, sorry. The Kiwi and I have been playing more and more Mario on the Wii U. So that's been going pretty fun.
Awesome.
But other than that, not a whole lot. Yeah. So, Gorehound, let's get to the segment. I think should we do this in lieu of Man Crush?
Yeah, I was going to suggest that.
Okay.
Yeah, so last week I went to the Jay and Silent Bob Get Old live podcast at the Vic Theater on a Thursday night, and it was really fun. Traffic was really sketchy because I was coming in from the suburbs into the city on a Thursday night during rush hour. But
why didn't you take like a train or something?
Because I wasn't sure how long it was going to last, and I really didn't want to get there too late. There wasn't assigned seating, so I also wanted to get there really early, and just for the experience, I wanted to be there as early as possible. So we ended up getting there like an hour early, I was super excited just to be in that arena, or the theater, for an hour beforehand, because I've never seen these guys before. Well, I've seen Jason Mewes, but that was at
as you say with disdain on your voice.
at last C2E2, and I didn't really get any like solid experience with him because I missed like the photo booth, and then I saw him in a horde later. But so I got to, first off, I was in this theater for an hour just hanging out, and I thought it was so funny because every single person in that theater was a like-minded individual like myself. Like, except for the Graveyard Queen, which was, I think, very bored. But she did.
Can I just say?
Go ahead.
Can I just say that I did see your wife on Sunday, and we did talk about this.
Yeah.
So I will add her commentary, or my interpretation of her commentary, after you're done.
Yeah, she was excited to go because I was excited, but she was not excited for the content. I believe that she liked the cultural phenom that Jay and Silent Bob are right now. The entire podcast was so much fun. I forgot that these are live podcasts. These are live events. And when I usually listen to them, I'm listening to them in the comfort of my own cube, in the car or something like that. I could pause, record, or I could pause, play whenever I want. And during this, there was some drunk people up front. We were like crammed into our seats. And
how far were you from the stage?
I was maybe like 4 rows back, maybe just 100 feet from them. So it was pretty close.
Did you take some snapshots?
I did not take any photos just because I really wanted to like embrace it and appreciate it. So yeah, there were some drunk people who it was annoying me from the get-go, but they ended up getting kicked out, and I was like, nice. But the content was a lot more. There's a much bigger presence because I'm in the theater and they can actually interact with us, so that was great. Regardless, it was a lot of fun. I would definitely do it again, but I think if I went in again, I probably just might go by myself because I felt like I was kind of dragging her through the mud on this, and she's just really not enjoying it. And I honestly have had no problem just going by myself.
Well, you have a good wife.
Yes. So, yeah, Jen, what was your interpretation of her thoughts?
So, speaking of your wife, like I said, we were hanging out on Sunday, and she was like, oh, so, here's the thing we did. And I was like, okay, first of all, I'm sure I'm going to hear about it from, from your husband on Thursday. So I want to make sure I get the actual facts from you. Yeah. And listen, she is such a nice person, much nicer than I am. So she did not play my game of entirely write off the entire event. She said that there were a few times she laughed. She said, she was also complaining about the drunks.
Yeah.
and talking about, how they were, in security, I guess, was sort of like, we could help, but we could also stand here, and that wasn't great.
Yeah, because like all the security members were talking with members of the audience. So I'm like, that's not your job to talk with people. It's your job to, look intimidating and tough.
Right. So, I guess they didn't bounce these people. But the thing she mentioned, which I thought was the most interesting part of it, was that the part of the podcast, which when we listened for this podcast, made no sense to me whatsoever, which was the, like, what if people had pretend sex on stage?
Oh, yeah, let us fuck.
Like, how in the world is that a 15-minute segment on a non-visual podcast?
Yeah.
And she said some guys stood up and you guys couldn't see anything that happened.
Yeah, they have this script down to, like, describe what this is. And Kevin Smith is like, and then Jay would do the Ewok cock block. And all I ever hear is, waka waka. And that's all I hear. I never know what they're actually doing. And then I was like, I'm finally going to get to see what the Ewok cock block is. And some guy stood up right in front of me. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I didn't want to, like, yell at anybody because everybody was very drunk and already yelling. And I was not drunk. And I was not in the mood to yell. So.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, she, like I said, much nicer about the experience, said that she really enjoyed hanging out with you, which was gross. And, but did say that, there were probably 3 times she laughed and a lot of times when she was not laughing. So
yeah, she enjoyed it much more than I thought that she would.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, and then I explained to her how they've made like at least $7 million doing these podcasts, and she was also upset.
Good for them. They deserve that money.
Ugh. They deserve nothing.
Hey, if they're going to sucker people into giving them their money, go for it.
But she did get to have dinner at Native Foods, which is one of her favorite Chicago places to eat. So,
I've never heard of it.
yeah, it's got a whole bunch of organic shit and
I like how dismissive you sound.
yeah. That's a topic for another day. The Gorehound and organic food. Do you not
like organic food?
I do not.
Oh, did you not like the food at my wedding? Because it was all organic.
It's
check and mate.
No, it's there's a bigger story behind this. So,
all right.
Nick, I bring up how good the food at your wedding was at least 3 times.
It was kick-ass, and I even remember eating like
except the donuts.
Yeah, dude.
Oh, it's our weekly
dog interruption.
Yeah.
I believe Thor is home and the dog has gone to investigate.
All right.
Oh, I thought you were about to say that was Thor barking.
No. If you hear screaming in 2 minutes, he is investigating some other thing, and I am being chopped in half by a knife.
All right. What's your favorite scary movie?
We could continue the podcast, though, right?
just make sure somebody calls the ambulance afterwards.
No, we'll just call this American Life and get someone investigated.
Yeah.
As we segue.
Oh yeah.
See what I did there? As we segue into the topic for the evening, S-Town, the newest podcast rage. So, this is a podcast that's 7 episodes long. I don't know if they're going to make any more. It's gained a lot of critical acclaim, and tonight we're going to be talking about if it deserves that critical acclaim and what we liked and disliked, and typically what we normally do here. If you guys don't mind, I'll give a brief...
Jen, how did you hear about this podcast?
So I heard about it because I'm a person and everyone was talking about it. And, people were leading up to it. I believe Serial had posted something on their Facebook page. And I'm always interested to see kind of what's happening in the world of podcasts because, I don't want to be alone with my own thoughts. So...
It's a scary place.
Honestly,
absolutely.
I cannot work without having somebody talk to me. I don't know if it's sad or whatnot, but okay. Nick, do you think that you would have listened to this if neither of us had mentioned it?
Probably not.
Yeah. Because you only listen to podcasts about podcasts.
I guess so, yeah. No, I don't listen to a lot of podcasts, which is ironic, I realize. But
It's so weird.
Anyway, okay, so Nick, you said you would not have listened to this if you hadn't been forced to by your friends?
More than likely not. And that's not like a reflection on its quality or the good people over at This American Life. It's just, I don't really follow that many podcasts. And yeah, I probably wouldn't have.
Let's hear the synopsis.
Okay, so S-Town follows the chronicles of Brian Reed, who's an investigative reporter for This American Life. At least that's the impression I got. And as he's brought down to this backwards Alabama town by a local eccentric character, John B.
Macklemore.
Macklemore.
Yeah, just like the white guy.
I keep thinking of the singer, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Hey, we'll call him Macklemore. If it's not right, he can contact us. Oh. Anyway, about how he brings him down to investigate this murder. And turns out there is no spoilers for people who haven't seen S-Town. I'll throw up a spoiler warning at the beginning of the episode. But it turns out there is no murder in the town. But they begin this sort of correspondence back and forth. And this guy, he's an eccentric guy. He's big into clocks. He's big into
he's real weird.
Change.
Very weird.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
very atypical of the normal nomenclature of that area. And by the end of the second episode, the first big twist, I guess, in the show is that he dies. He commits suicide. And the following 4 or 5 episodes after that is exploring who this guy is following his death. And that's pretty much the crux of it. In there we meet a bunch of other crazy people in the town, including Tyler Goodson, who's a friend of Macklemore's. We learn from we learn about his cousins who try to come in to help take care of things after Macklemore dies, and a bunch of other people in the town there. So I had listened to all 7 episodes,
which is very, I have to say, is very impressive, because I really didn't think that you were going to. I thought you were going to have a difficult time because you don't have a smartphone, and you only listen to our own podcast.
You don't listen to our own podcast either.
Yeah, but you do. You're one of the 50. I know that.
Well, you guys said, "Hey, Nick, let's listen to this." I'm like, "All right, I could." It's only 7 episodes. I could do this.
But each episode is like an hour, and so it is a little bit of a time commitment on each one.
It's definitely emotionally a lot as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack during the episode, and I will say it keeps your attention throughout. Like, you're always like, oh, what's going to happen next?
Certainly.
So let me ask you guys this: what were your impressions? Jen, how much did you listen of S-Town?
Oh, I listened to the whole thing. I was the one who had suggested it. I had not listened at all, and then after we all decided, like the next day, I marathoned the whole thing basically.
You should take note that I only did request you guys to listen to the first 3, but apparently nobody saw that.
Well, true. Maybe. Did you?
You said you had only listened to the first 3.
Did I?
I'm pulling up my Facebook. We're going to settle this right now.
Absolutely.
Oh, speaking of Facebook, Gorehound, did you know today is our anniversary? 7 years ago today, we became friends on Facebook.
Yeah.
That's solidified our friendship, because that's the only thing that counts in friendship is Facebook friends. Okay, so I'm pulling this up here, and
so let's just try to get through the first 3 eps for Thursday.
Let's see. All right, you good for topic? I thought S-Town, Pox about Cos. Yeah, I just finished up the second and third episode today. Haven't started it yet. Nick does a 90s style Nokia, and I said, yes, I can do that. What's it about? Murder. Yeah, you did not say, let's get through the first 3 episodes.
So let's just try to get through the first 3 eps for Thursday.
You did not send that to us.
I sent it to Nick and Jennifer.
I do not have it in my... Let me look again.
It's the last text in the thread.
Oh, okay. Murder investigation. Let's try to get through the first 3 eps for Thursday. Okay, because each ep is an hour. Okay. Well, do you want to do the first 3 eps today, and then we'll finish the last 3 eps next week?
No, because you've already spoiled it for me. There was no murder.
They reveal that in like the first or second episode.
Yeah. No, we're continuing through this because I feel like I already know everything that's happening.
Well, I'll give you this. Not much else actually happens.
Yeah.
In my opinion. But okay, anyway, we're getting way off topic. We're on topic, but off topic. Jen, what did you think of S-Town?
I thought, okay, so I'm going to be honest with you guys. I knew that everyone had said you should listen to it, but also you shouldn't do any reading about it before it happens. And somehow I had gotten it in my head that this was like a parody of like NPR / This American Lifestyle podcasts. And I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is exactly what it would sound like if this was a real thing. And then it turned out to be a real thing. Which took me several hours to figure out. I have no particular reason for thinking this other than, I don't know, maybe I thought somebody said that. I don't know.
Well, no, my first impression was that I really did think it was just scripted.
I mean, I think John B as a character, you don't want to talk about that in terms of people, but I mean, also if he were like a parody of something that like NPR thought Southern people were like, I'd be like, yeah, that is exactly what I think NPR thinks people from the South are like. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Like, he just seems like such a over the top kind of figure that it's, not that you couldn't find somebody like that, but it's definitely not a guarantee. Yeah. So anyway, I thought it was very interesting, like just a really interesting way to get through the, past my day, certainly. And, definitely like, an interesting sort of dive into a person that otherwise would just sort of, disappear from the earth.
Gorehound, what did you think of the couple episodes you listened to?
Well, I'm very eager to listen to the rest of them. I kind of just held off on them and just kind of...
because of what we discussed.
Yes, exactly. I really thought that it was going to be difficult to get Nick to listen to 3 hours of somebody else's podcast. So I set the bar low, but you have impressed me. So next time I will next podcast review, we're gonna listen to like 15 hours in 1 week. How about that?
That I can guarantee you will not be happening.
I could do it. I could take that challenge.
I know you could. That's like 2 days for you.
Yeah. I've listened. The audiobook is 12 hours right now, and I've gotten through like 6 in 2 days. So
that's awesome.
So yeah.
But yeah, anyway, so
my first impression was that some guy just recommended this to me, and I was like, I'll give it a shot. I'm always up for a good recommendation. And yeah, I was really intrigued with it because as soon as I go to the website, this website is crazy. It is so well produced and it's so pretty. And they're talking about Serial and This American Life, and I'm like, that's impressive, because I honestly think like Serial is the apex of podcasts.
Sure.
So yeah, I listened to the first 3 eps, and I was very intrigued, especially when he dies. I was like, man, that is... And it's right then when I really started to wonder whether this was scripted or not. But since thinking that, I realized that it's probably not. It also could be that I've been listening to another like heavily scripted podcast called Rabbits, which is not very good, but I've been pushing through with that. So,
what in the world is the topic of a show called Rabbits?
It's nothing about the animal. It's about this like underground game, and somebody goes missing, and their friend goes looking for them, and they find out that they've been playing this like underground hacker game called Rabbits, where nobody is playing, but everybody is playing. It's not very good. So, yeah.
So, is it my turn?
Let's hear it.
I liked it, but I really feel, what's his name? Brian Reed? Is that the guy?
The narrator.
The narrator?
Yes.
Who, I don't know why, but he sounds exactly like Seth Meyers. Anytime he was talking, I kept thinking of Seth Meyers for some reason. Listen to it again and think of Seth Meyers, and this is this guy. He looks nothing like him, because I Googled what he actually looked like, but he just sounded like him. Anyway, I really think, like, after, like, the 3rd episode or so, he was really stretching his material thin, and then it just ends. And I know this is real life. I know there's a lot of things that are still ongoing in these people's lives, but he brings up a lot of, for lack of a better term, story parts that go nowhere and have no resolution. Like the whole idea about who took his gold. Did it take his gold? Is his gold still on the property? Yeah. What's going to happen between the battle between the cousins and the best friend?
Yeah.
Like those, that was interesting, and then it just kind of disappears.
There are a lot of stories going on with this that don't really go anywhere, but I feel like the content is still pretty valuable, but it does kind of diminish the central line of the podcast. What is this podcast about? It's about a murder. How did these really contribute to it? And it's like, they don't.
Like, I don't mind the bait and the switch on that. It kind of works, I guess, but like, you're learning about this guy, and then it goes nowhere. Like, do we really need a whole episode dedicated to an interview with this guy's former friend who they met on like the was it the 90s version of Grindr, I guess?
Mm-hmm.
Like, the guy, I mean, I feel like this was like a 45-minute segment. It could have been done in 5 because he didn't bring really anything new to the table that we didn't already know about him. It felt very like, okay, why are we spending so much time with this? And then at the end, we have this whole thing about, oh yeah, he may have had mercury poisoning, and it goes on and on about that when it could have just been condensed. I felt like he was really stretching his material, and it petered out for me towards the end there.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it's.
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say, I think it's interesting because it's like, a lot of that was kind of real life. Like, you stopped talking to the best friend because his lawyer said maybe you should stop talking to the podcast man, and
Mm-hmm.
the cousin has kind of done her part in the town, and really doesn't have any reason to come back. So, I'm not sure how much more conversation could happen there. I don't know if how I feel about the charge that they are stretching material, but I mean, I definitely understand that it's kind of one of those things where at some point you have to pick a point to end, and like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much more story they could have gotten out of it, because
Right, and I get that. I mean, I guess by stretch I mean it's like did this show really need to be 7 episodes long?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it necessarily had to be. And I know he was probably running out of material, so to speak, in terms of, because they make some brief references to the 2016 election. So clearly he was recording stuff up to very, very recently. And I'm sure a lot of the legal stuff that's going on, they talk about, is still going on at this moment. Like, I don't know. I felt like there was no resolution to what we were doing, other than, here's more stuff about this guy. I mean, like, okay.
How would you compare this to, Nick, you didn't listen to Serial. Jen, what did you think of this compared to Serial?
I think, and I think Serial kind of had that same, like, I really enjoyed Serial.
Mm-hmm.
I started listening about,
here.
like 8 episodes in, so I kind of marathoned the first, 8 or so, 7, 9, I don't remember, and then was kind of listening. And that was another one where it was like, well, this is, it was really interesting, but I mean, I think it kind of depends what you get out of the thing. Like, I think, we're kind of used to TV where things like court cases can kind of end in in 45 minutes. Whereas, in real life, like, they were like, okay, we want this guy to get a new trial, but also, that could be, and since then there's been some updates about, okay, well, they're investigating this trial and that, and looking into like getting him a new trial. But of course the system moves at the rate of snails. So it's like, at some point you kind of have to put your stuff out. I mean, I think it kind of depends what you're looking to get from a podcast in terms of, when they're going to stop putting the material out,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'd say I can definitely see the similarities between the show and Serial, because they definitely like share a sensibility, even though this was all released at once, as opposed to, I think it would have maybe played different for Nick if it had come out week by week. I'd be sort of curious if there's anyone out there who's kind of taking it episode by episode.
Because Serial was released on a weekly basis. But yeah, they're both investigative murder podcasts. So that is what they have in general, and they're both from similar producers. But I felt like Serial was much more sticking to the central line, like trying to get to the end of this, whereas this was like, where is the center line? But the characters in this one were so much more interesting and weird, and just is really drawing you back in. Whereas in Serial, it was very cliffhanger, getting you going. And this is like, jeez. After every conversation, it's like, what?
It's very much more quote-unquote character-driven.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like, it's not so much a hardcore plot, which is not bad. It's
definitely like a character study as opposed to like a, story with necessarily a resolution.
Yeah, and this does take place in the South, where I just think that most people who are listening to podcasts aren't from the South, and so this is like a whole new life that the narrator has really just dived deep into. We aren't familiar with these kind of people, and they're different than what we are experiencing on a daily basis, and so that's why we're drawn so close to it, because it's something new.
Oh yeah, no, I think that's part of what makes it so fascinating. Is it's like there's almost no way I would meet these people in my day-to-day Chicago life, and even within that Southern frame, you still have like this subculture of like clock people. Yeah. I guess there was a term for it, but I will not remember it. But that's just such a different like. Try to imagine, like, okay, I like invite you guys over for a barbecue, and then I'm like, also while you're here, I'm going to burn mercury to make gold plating for this clock, and you'd be like, what?
Yeah,
like it's such a different thing. I mean, I would not have met any of these people under any circumstances.
But it really adds value that he was actually there, and he's given us his first-hand impressions of him doing that thing with the penny. What was it, a nickel?
Yeah, I think it was a nickel.
Yeah.
You're gonna have a souvenir from me.
Yeah, and it's like you can never do that on like a phone call or something like that. And so while we can't see what's happening, it's like it's so weird.
Absolutely. I did see on this guy's Twitter that he did show a picture of the coin, the gold-plated coin, which he like turned into a necklace.
Okay.
So it was nice looking. I mean, it was cool. Probably not worth like potential mercury poisoning, but like it's cool that that's a thing people can do.
Do you feel any of this show was exploitative of John, especially since he died, and kind of going into all of his personal business, which without his consent, essentially?
I think there's two questions right there. Whether it was like whether he was able to do it without his consent, or whether it was.
So there was an article on Vox a few days ago.
Oh yeah, I read that same one also.
I'm not sure if this should have been made, and I think the author brings up some very valid points. It's sort of interesting because this guy, John, clearly wanted Brian to be in his life. You know what I mean? Like, I definitely think the article is worth a read. I don't know if I think I'd have to sit on it a little longer to decide how I feel. But, I do think it's interesting because, this guy didn't expect a podcast to get made about him. But at the same time, he emailed this reporter, got this reporter to come down to investigate other people, and there's definitely some, I think you could have a healthy debate about whether he actually believed there was this murder that had been committed in the town, or if he just kind of wanted someone new to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that. I guess, like, especially with Brian, how he revealed, like, something that he told him, like, off the record.
Oh, right.
And his his reasoning seemed kind of bullshit reasoning, in my opinion. Like, oh well, he's atheist, so he wouldn't care.
Right.
Which there's more to it. I'm simplifying it considerably, but kind of what if you boil it down. But it's like I don't know about that.
Yeah. No, that definitely did feel not great. Certainly when you're revealing things about people's secret love lives, you run the risk of. It probably doesn't so much matter for the man who has passed away, but, if he had a secret, lover on the side in this small town, someone else could figure out who that person is, and that's not ideal.
Yeah.
You think the town is going to get some more traffic?
Would they want more traffic? It does not paint the town in a good light.
No,
I mean,
but
hell, they-
there are people, including myself, who would seek out these cult places. It's just, I mean, because I used to look up
Oh, absolutely.
like haunted places within, an hour drive from myself, just because I heard somebody talking about it, and I would go out and seek it out. If I was in this area, I would. If this was within an hour drive, I would definitely go to this town, if even just to drive through it. But that's, I guess, just in my nature.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think so. People have definitely figured out, where his maze is, and they're like looking at the maze on Google Earth and everything. I could definitely see myself going to a location where a podcast was recorded and that kind of thing. Like, I would do that. But this is also a town where the local lumber is named like possibly after the KKK. Like,
yeah, like what was it?
that guy did not seem
K3,
bothered. Right, like that's
who now
weird.
owns this property.
I don't know if I'd feel like, I mean, I'm white, so it's not like I think it would be a danger necessarily to me, but like, I'm pretty sure I'd disagree, on a lot of things with a lot of the people there, and I think maybe, they wouldn't necessarily take too kindly to, some carpetbagger coming down and, this is just what I assume this is phrases that I assume Southern people use. I have no idea if anyone actually uses it, but I would not want to find out, like, I don't think I'd be good friends with Bubba. I just don't think so.
I would like to think that I could be friends with like all these people.
You
I
would.
would love to see it.
I think
Because
I would try.
you got tattoos, you got longer hair, you got a beard.
Yeah.
They would be like, yeah, you're one of us.
But then they're like, have some chicken, and I'll be like, sorry, not gonna do that.
Right. I think you'd come across as like some, weirdo northerner.
Yeah. But then again, I mean, look at John B. It's like, if I don't know if I would compare on a level of weirdness as he did to them.
Well, you don't inhale mercury fumes, as far as I know, so that's a point to Gorehound.
Yes.
Let's talk about some of the details. And Gorehound, you may not be able to touch much on this because you didn't listen to the whole thing, despite the fact that you said we should listen to the whole thing. That's my story. I'm sticking with it. But Jen, who do you think has the gold, if anyone?
So I think that's interesting.
Before we go into that, just for people who haven't people who haven't listened to the podcast, just to set the scene so you know what we're talking about. The main character, he's not even a character. I feel awkward saying that, but John B. there was lots of rumors, and he kind of confirmed it, that he had a lot of gold. Like, he didn't trust banks, so he put all his money in gold, and it was allegedly buried somewhere on his property. And after he died, no one could find it. No one knows where it's at, although the podcast does give some suggestions that some people may have taken it or may not have. And it's never definitively proved, but there are a couple of suspects. So, Jen, who do you think might have it?
Absolutely. So I guess I'm going to go down on the side of I'm not sure there was gold. Or if there was gold, I'm not sure there still is gold. Not as in I think the cousins took it necessarily or that Tyler somehow found it, but as in I think this guy, probably knew he was going to kill himself one day and didn't so much, didn't have the mental bandwidth in terms of, his depression and everything. Like, he didn't set aside like a real will, or didn't really set aside anything for his mother. I can't picture a world where he had a bunch of resources and then didn't set anything aside for his mother. So I'm going to go on the side of there is no gold, or if there was gold, he had gotten rid of it before he died. That's where I'm going to fall on that. How about you?
I think there was gold because there was, and I can't remember which one it was, which person it is, but they said that he had shown them some of the bars.
Sure.
So I'm going on the side that he did have some gold. I really want to believe that Tyler didn't take it, but man, there's some evidence that is really pointing in his direction. One of them being that when they came to the house afterwards, even when the cops came to check on the body and all that there were things already missing. Like there was the mother's purse, the laptop, and various other things that were gone. So I'm wondering if someone did come in and swipe it before people could check it out. If Tyler did have the gold, he doesn't strike me as someone who would save it.
Who was Tyler again?
No.
Tyler was a neighbor, a younger neighbor who John B. Took under his wing. He worked for John B. He was the guy who was there when John B. made the coin for.
Okay.
Yeah. He's not the type that would be responsible with it. Like he would like piss it away, and there would have been some noticeable like, wow, he made a lot of large purchases. Like he wouldn't have sold those other cars.
Right, and that is the other reason I don't necessarily think he has it. Like if it's out there, I don't necessarily think he's found it, because I feel like he would not be somebody. Oh, it's so hard to like say this without sounding like a complete jerk, but he does not necessarily strike me as somebody who wouldn't, immediately run down to the tattoo parlor and get 16 new tattoos, or like, do something kind of ridiculous with the money that would give away to people that he had.
Yeah.
Hit it big.
Yeah, he would buy something huge. Like
right.
He drives up with a Ferrari or something like,
Right.
It's so easy to sound like, oh, the cousins are the villains here. But then when you start hearing from the cousins, it's like, oh, they're not villains. They just didn't know what the situation was. And from their perspective, quite rightly, it seems all shady as shit. Like Tyler wasn't.
Oh, do they actually get to talk with the cousins?
Eventually, yes.
Okay.
They do.
Because, yeah, that was my impression, that they were just, like, awful people, and they were just coming to loot everything.
I will say, I think the cousins did do something to the mother, because the mother used to be close with Tyler, and then all of a sudden she's not. Like, don't call me mama anymore, and things. They don't seem like the, at least not on the outset, the money-grubbing, we're going to take advantage of this situation. Which, again, I could be wrong, but that's not the...
Right. I think what I liked best about this was how, nobody could really be the villain. Nobody was really the hero. Like you really liked John B, but then, at the same time, he did leave his mother in this like precarious position. And like he, maybe wasn't taking good care of her in terms of the house and in terms of, other stuff that was going on. So, it's hard to know, like, and obviously we're just going off of everyone's interpretations, but it's like, you don't really know what people are, doing, and like who, everyone's kind of acting for themselves, but, I don't know that anyone's being a complete jerk, I mean, everyone's got their own self-interest, but I wouldn't necessarily say anyone is, trying to hurt anybody.
Yeah, no one's being malicious.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. No one is malicious. And, and it is so complicated, right? Because you do sort of like the cousin, and then the cousin says something, about, trying to get some jewelry from her cousin that, from John. That's
trying to rip it off his nipples or something like that.
Right. Is like, trying to get this jewelry back from the Undertaker, and is like, well, it's fine. Just, cut a nipple off. And you're like, oh my God, like, what the fuck? Like, that is such a fucking weird thing to say.
Or how Tyler later on, he had a handyman work on his house, and he was pretty sure the handyman stole his grandfather's gun. Yeah. And he was going to like trick the handyman to come back and then start like clipping off his like fingers to like until he returned the guns. It's like, oh my God. And like and then Tyler doesn't see anything wrong with that, even though Brian's like, you would really do that? Why would you do such a thing?
And like, I mean, and I guess part of what's so crazy about it to me too is that like, not only does Tyler not think it's wrong, like Tyler doesn't even think it's a big deal to record with the New Yorker with the tape recorder. You know what I mean? Like that's so strange to me. I mean, I don't commit a lot of crimes, but if I was going to commit crimes and then somebody from This American Life was like, tell me about the crimes you're going to commit. I'd be like, I think I'm not going to do that. I think I'm not going to tell you about my crimes because
Do you think that there was a possibility that they didn't really understand what a podcast was, and that's why they were so open to it, because they were just like, oh, it's just something that's like on the radio, like AM, FM radio or something like that.
I'm not sure this was started off as a podcast intentionally. I'm guessing it just started off as a regular news report they're going to do with This American Life, whether it's going to be in podcast form or however else they do it. And I just think as it evolved, they're like, hey, let's make a podcast out of it. We have enough material for a couple of
probably after the death. They were like, oh, we got something.
Oh, sure. No, I agreed. I don't think anyone was intending to make a podcast. I think they were looking into seeing if this was the murder was an actual thing, and then along the way they're like, well, we could just make this be a podcast, but no one set out. But again, like, if somebody has recording equipment, you don't know exactly what they're going to do with it, but like, they're recording it, and you're talking about cutting off someone's fingers. Like, that's just mind-boggling to me. Like,
a question for you. Something with the recording. It's amazing how he had that recording going like the entire time he was there to get all the proper things. Like, I know this is just a conspiracy theory in my mind, so I know this is not true. But he was able to like get everything exactly when he needed. Like when he was calling the people, he's like, hello, this is so-and-so, I'm doing this. He doesn't even say that he's recording. Like, did he do that after the fact? That seems sort of like you should get the permission first and then record. But
I mean, they also probably didn't want to. I'm sure people had to sign some sort of release because he's using their names. Like, I would be shocked if he didn't, somehow cover it and they just cut that part out, right? Like, I don't know. Probably though. Like,
I would think so, unless they did it under the guise of it's a news thing, so we don't have to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know I don't know. Again, that's just I'm sure everything's all fine because I'm sure these people are cautious about litigation. But moving on, I have another question for you, Jen.
Absolutely.
The town clerk, who allegedly didn't call any of the people on the list.
Sure.
Do you think she is telling the truth by saying, I tried calling, but I didn't get a hold of them? And
absolutely not.
Okay. Why do you think she didn't call any of them?
Well, and that's why I think it's so strange, because I'm not sure how she stood to benefit, but at the same time, like, you work as like a county clerk in this like small town. I can't imagine you have that much to do all day that you don't have time to like. And I mean, even if I was working full time, I'd like to think I could, make the time to make these calls. But it's like, it is very strange that she didn't seem to call any of these people on the list, and that, and I don't know what her game was. I don't know if, this was some sort of way in which she was in league with somebody to try to get some of the stuff from the house, or, I mean, it could just be simple, simply that, she doesn't really care about her job and she never really liked this guy to begin with. And she figured as long as she contacted, the next of kin, the cousins, whatever, I've done enough. But it's weird. It's very weird. It's like there's no obvious benefit. So I don't know what her plan is. And I also she's another one where I'm like, okay, I have no idea why you're agreeing to be on tape for any of this.
Yeah, I feel that there's something missing to the whole story.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. I think there's something up with the town, because there's a couple of things that hint at the town government that just seem a little off. And especially since she was the one who listened to him die. That's creepy.
Yeah.
She knew, okay, he's not there. But then again, if you're listening to someone commit suicide, I don't think you're going to be in the right frame of mind, like, hey, let's go run and get his money. Especially if you weren't expecting that, Because then you did learn that there was... Oh, no, that was the old county clerk. My bad. I'm getting the two county clerks confused. That there were bad blood between, because they used to be friends and then not. Yeah, there's something weird going on. I mean, she called the cousins, but they were, like, way down on the list, as opposed to calling the first couple of top people on the list.
Right.
So, yeah, there's a piece of the puzzle missing. I guess that was part of my disappointment with this. As the podcast went on, is that they didn't go into. They just like presented the question, but no follow through or follow up. Which I know it's real life, and you can only do so much, but you know, it's still disappointing.
Yeah. No, it'll be interesting to see. You know, much in the same way that after Serial ended, the people, you know, everyone still continued to exist, and like I said, there's been new developments along the way. People have come forward, and you know, they've started moving on various court-related things. So it'll be interesting to see if, you know, a year from now somebody's like, actually, let me tell you what happened with, you know. It'll be interesting to see. I would not be shocked.
Yeah, I would be curious as well to see where they might go with this down the line. Right. If they have I doubt they'll do a season 2.
No, I don't think so.
I'm sure other things will come up over time.
Right. More information. Somebody will be like, you know, somebody will along the way knows more and, you know, may go ahead and admit it. You know, maybe it's some sort of deathbed confession. Maybe it's, you know, even if it's just somebody who listened to their story on the podcast or listened to their section of the story and wants to like set the record straight. You know, it's like, hey, I feel like I was misrepresented. Actually, I did find the gold. Here it is. Please look at it. You know, whatever it may be. But
I'm curious what Tyler said to him at the very end of the episode.
Oh, absolutely.
Off camera. So
absolutely.
Like he did say, like, if you found the gold, I'm going to report it. So just beware to tell me, because I would figure that even if he told him off the camera, cops might come to investigate. You know, subpoena him. I don't know how that works with reporting, but
no, yeah, I don't know. But I feel like it's got to be. I mean, it definitely was not legal. Like you have somebody who's got possibly buried treasure, but it's not your property. You can't just go and like dig around. And it sounded like, you know, Tyler was there digging holes, not filling in holes, just kind of, you know. And I just like, did no one, you know, I don't. But again, it's a small town. It looks like Tyler's good friends with one of the cops, you know.
Yeah. I think it was like the police chief, I think.
Yeah, you know, so it could be, you know, who knows exactly what's going on in that town. You know, and I think that's part of what's so fascinating about it. You know, again, not to get too much of viewing real life as if they're, you know, characters in a novel, but there's a certain like economy of scale when it comes to these the people on this podcast. Like there's only 12 people in the town or something, and, you know, 11 of them are on the podcast. So it's not like they're having to pull up some, you know, all new people every episode. It's like, nope, there's only so many.
Do you think, well, I guess, Gorehound, what do you have to say about all this? We've kind of been talking over here.
I have not listened to that part yet.
So. Right. It'll be really, you know, I think next week or whenever you finish, the next time we have a podcast, we are going to have to ask you for some updated thoughts.
Sure.
And maybe they'll have updates in real life with different things, because this show is being listened to a ton of people, and everyone's an amateur detective, and so everyone's going to have their theory, and I almost feel bad for the town, because you're going to have a lot of weirdos come in and be like, I'm going to solve the mystery.
Yeah, especially when they're not going to spend any money either.
Yeah. And I feel bad for the people who own John's property now, or not, because I guess he was a borderline racist. But at the same time, I don't feel
bad for that guy.
At the same time, it's like all of a sudden they're invading his property to like find the gold. But
yeah, no, and I'd be curious what Tyler thinks about this, because if Tyler is just going through trying to find this gold on the property, assuming he hasn't already found it, and again, like if you've already found it, like I would abandon building your own house and like go buy a house that's already been constructed. That would be my own personal gold related dreams. But you know, if he hasn't found it and he's still going over there and digging around, I bet he is not going to like, you know, a bunch of people from Reddit or whatever coming by and also trying to find this gold.
Yeah, he probably won't like that. Not one bit.
Mm-mm.
I don't think anyone will like that, not one bit. Especially if you get all the yuppie Northerners coming in.
Absolutely.
So I don't know. Is there anything else we want to say about S-Town?
No,
It's fascinating stuff.
Would you guys recommend S-Town to someone to listen to?
definitely.
Yeah. I think at the very least, because it's something kind of new and different, and not that I don't listen to a lot of podcasts that follow very specific podcast conventions, but this is just so different than anything else that, I've really heard, so.
It reminded me the way it was presented, and maybe Serial's like this again. I haven't watched that, but it almost felt with...
The rest of us had to listen to it.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you guys haven't watched it either then. Haven't listened to it. But the way it was presented felt like an audiobook with interviews in it. The very conversational style. I don't know why I was flashing back to the book Just Mercy, Bryan Stevenson. I don't know if either of you have heard of it.
Never heard of it.
It's a biographical novel. A great read. Jen, I think you would like it a lot. About he's a lawyer for the equal... I can't think of the name of it. He works for a nonprofit organization that tries to get people off death row who shouldn't be there, and so he looks into their specific cases. And this
the Innocence Project guy?
No, it's not called the Innocence Project. It's like a full-on big law firm, but Equal Justice Initiative. I think that's what they call it. Yeah, that's what it's called, the Equal Justice Initiative. And the book talks about he's trying to get this guy off of death row, who was actually from like the Birmingham, Alabama area, which is like, oh wow, that's not far from where this is taking place. The guy, the inmate happens to be black, so there's a lot of book about black relations and black race relations and all that. Bryan Stevenson is black himself, so it adds another layer to that as well. So fascinating book, but I listened to the audiobook when I had quote unquote read that one, and it's done in a very conversational style the way this podcast is. Only the podcast has live feed from interview feed from that there. So when I was listening, this feels more like an audiobook than an actual podcast. But then again, my experience with podcasts are not as vast as yours. I think of people almost doing like a radio show as opposed to an audio essay, as it were. I would recommend this with some caution, because if you're thinking it's going to go and have some sort of sense of resolution by the end of it, you're going to be vastly disappointed.
But I do also think that most people are not expecting a good ending, because I think most podcasts that are out, or serialized ones like this, they haven't really had a good ending. So I'm not sure people are expecting a good ending.
Well, at least something that sort of feels like everything's resolved. Like, let me ask you, Serial, that they're investigating a murder, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do they have, by the end of each season, they have some sort of resolution to that particular case, one way or another?
Not really.
Well, actually, let me rephrase. I mean, they're not investigating a murder per se. They're investigating a guy who's in jail for a murder, and then kind of going back and looking at the pieces and saying, so I think the resolution of Serial is sort of, we don't know, but he should have gotten a better trial than he got.
But
not
at least
necessarily, we have solved this mystery Scooby-Doo style. You know what I mean?
But at least there's a sense of a beginning, middle, and end to it. Like, you're not feeling like that there's plenty of leftover questions that, what's going to happen now? You kind of get the story that they're trying to tell, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I guess with this one, like, it starts to build, like, what's happening after he dies, and then it's almost like they pivot from that and say, let's just talk about unpack the mystery of who this guy is. And I don't know, that I didn't care for that switch, because I was invested in what the goings-ons, as it were.
right.
So I would recommend it because it's very interesting. It keeps your attention all the way through. Again, if you're looking for some sort of beginning, middle, end, quote-unquote story type, you're not going to get that. So that's all I got to say about that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I thought it was an interesting podcast. I think and I would say that people should listen to it before they listen to this episode. So put that at the beginning of the episode. Because I do think going into it with knowing as little as possible would be better than being like, okay, well, here's what you're going to get. Here's what you're not going to get.
Yeah, that's fair. I can get behind that. All right. I don't have any trivia because I don't know how I would do trivia for S-Town.
You are really dropping the ball, bro.
I know.
We have a segment. Okay, stick to it.
All right.
Next week.
Okay, next week. Whatever we're going to talk about next week. Lord knows I don't know yet, but
TBD.
So, all right. Well, I guess that's all we got to say about S-Town. Go check it out. Let's hope you have, because if you haven't, we've just spoiled every single thing in this. I'll give one more spoiler. The series ends where it's revealed that John B is somehow related to a notorious outlaw, like his great-great-grandpa when the county was formed was an outlaw who did a lot of bad things, and I don't know. It's a weird little detail to throw in.
That doesn't seem surprising.
Like he like stole land from people and killed them, and eventually had to skip jail and gave everything to his kid. So anyway, we've spoiled now everything that could possibly be spoiled.
You've been listening to the all-new Culture Cast.
All right, I guess that's going to do it for us for this week. We're glad you joined. If you have any questions, drop us an email, all that other fun jazz. Otherwise, we will see you next week. Once again, I'm Nick.
I'm the Gorehound.
And I'm Jen.
And this was the all-new Culture Cast. Have a good one, everyone.
Production. Copyright 2017. Thanks for listening.